Welcome to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. You know, there is a proposal out there to improve the lives of battery chickens using Oculus Rift-like virtual reality glasses. Though the chickens will be in their congested battery towers of fecal matter, they will think they are living free range. They will be virtual free-range chickens, kind of like the American dream, actually. Plugged into CNN and CNBC, many Americans believe that what they see around them is a reality in which they are not only free, but high-earning, wealth-creating, goods-producing, market-soaring, going places people. Instead, they are no-holiday-taking, debt-loading, scamming, and being scam people, living in towers of toxic fecal debt. Stacy?
Max. Oculus Rift for chickens, are you saying? Yes, this is called Second Livestock. And the system would provide chickens with a virtual free-range experience where they can roam free, socialize with virtual chickens, and eat virtual food, which would be placed in the virtual world to line up with where the chicken would be fed in the real world. And that reminded me of actually our real life now as human beings, where we have virtual friends. We socialize with them on Twitter and Facebook. And we also have virtual food, which is actually processed food and genetically modified food.
Well, this is incredible because they believe that the brains of the chicken would be better served by putting little goggles on their little chicken heads, and through the chicken eyes, they will see that they're free-range chickens, but they're actually living in fecal towers and battery. Let's get Plucky on board. Plucky, of course, is one of the most famous plucked chickens in the world. He travels with us throughout our voyages and adventures. Plucky, this is an idea where, if I understand it correctly, to put little goggles on the eyes of battery chickens like yourself, and then you live in a virtual reality. And is this... What Plucky is saying is that it would be better than what the average American has right now watching CNN.
So this is a proposal, of course, but they also say regarding this that this would keep the chickens happy, supposedly, while also keeping them safe from predators and other hazards of free-range existence, kind of like a matrix for chickens. And so the virtual reality, virtual free-range reality would keep them free from the harms of being genuinely free range. So that's also like America, where we have this, free Americans. Used to be possibly there was the risk of terrorism or a bad guy coming out there, but nobody wants that risk anymore. So they want to put on the virtual reality and have the Homeland Security and the NSA and the FBI and the DIA and the CIA, everybody protect them in this virtual tower of virtual security.
Stacy! Stacy!
What?
Is this from Mark Zuckerberg? Did he come up with this idea? He bought Facebook stock on the IPO,
Well, Plucky, he is, yes.
All right, Plucky, get off the show. We've had enough of you. What's the next story? Some Plucky's always stepping in unwanted.
So, in terms of the virtual reality in which they live and how they, people perceive the reality that they're in based on the propaganda, I want to look at this article from The Economist magazine talking about the United States healthcare system, which many Americans will shriek to high heaven that they want this. This is the best system in the world. We're number one, despite all the results showing it's the worst. Well, healthcare fraud in America, that is where the money is. In America, the scale of medical embezzlement is extraordinary. According to Donald Barrick, the ex-boss of Medicare and Medicaid, the public health schemes for the old and poor, America lost between $82 billion and $272 billion in 2011 to medical fraud and abuse. The higher figure is 10% of medical spending and a whopping 1.7% of GDP, as if robbers had made off with the entire output of Tennessee or nearly twice the budget of Britain's National Health Service.
Well, fraud is the underlying economic force that drives the entire GDP of America and the globe. So why should healthcare be immune from this? Wall Street's driven by fraud. The banks in London are driven by fraud. And we see it in healthcare as well. But we see it also in the defense contracting business. Famously, the $600 toilet and all these other fraudulent schemes. The $8 billion that was airlifted into Iraq and magically disappeared. The $1 trillion that Rumsfeld talked about as missing right before 9/11. Those are billions and trillions of dollars that are just going to the ether, end up in the pockets of kleptocrats and various other ne'er-do-wells that drive up the price of boxes in London real estate and elsewhere.
Also, the system they have is, so rife with paperwork, way more than anything you see in Europe. So there's huge amounts of paperwork with all your identity details on it, your social security number, all that stuff is on these thousands and thousands of documents that go out for every single visit you make to the doctors. So all sorts of, $8 or $5 an hour sort of employees see this stuff, and that's also another point at which the criminal gangsters, instead of this, the blue, the white collar gangsters come in. Criminal gangs are switching from cocaine to prescription drugs. The rewards are as juicy, but with less risk of being shot or arrested. One clinic in New York allegedly wrote bogus prescriptions for more than 5 million painkillers, which were then sold on the street for $30 to $90 each. Identity thieves have realized that medical records are more valuable than credit card numbers. Steal a credit card and the victim quickly notices. Photocopy a Medicare card and you could bill Uncle Sam for ages undetected.
It's a bureaucratic dystopian nightmare driven by organized crime. They're moving from the hashish and heroin injecting under the bridge drug dens to just pushing paper through the government that's incredibly corrupt and just says yes to every single piece of paper that goes through their greedy little mitts, including trillions and trillions of worthless paper money. But getting back to the Oculus Rift and the battery farm chickens, I mean, remember the storyline of Matrix Part 1 was that the babies were used as batteries to generate energy to keep the bureaucratic paper-pushing machine going. So this is what's happening in the battery chicken farms. They're putting little Oculus Rift Matrix-like goggles on them to think that they're somehow not being part of a battery farm full of cascading feces on their heads, and this is being applied now to the general population. Soon, within 2 or 3 years, I would fully imagine these towers being built here in London, these huge skyscrapers, will be just basically fecal drips. Come down onto the people wearing these rifty glasses, Oculus Rift, doing their searching on Facebook and Twitter and catching up on all the paperwork they need to fill out to get the bogus medical returns that they themselves are paying for through their extortionary taxes.
Yes, and here we have the Oculus Rift of the healthcare system, where people really think is somehow a free market sort of the best in the world. Many of the participants in it believe it, even though they're paying $272 billion for the VIG, the fraud to the gangster in the equation. Now, they say it is hard to make a vast system secure. Medicare's contractors process 4.5 million claims a day, but pointless complexity makes it even harder. Does Medicare really need 140,000 billing codes, as it will have next year, including 10 for injuries that take place in mobile homes and 9 for attacks by turtles? So there's 9 billing codes for attacks by turtles.
I'm not sure where turtle attacks come into the Medicare and financial fraud of the healthcare system. I know when you mentioned that I remember a story I saw recently on Twitter linked to an obsession by the Japanese, apparently, who like to study hamster butts.
Yes.
We can put that up on the screen. This is a Japanese obsession. They like to follow and look at the derrieres of hamsters. So how this relates to turtles eating medical records, I'm not sure. But it sounds like bestiality.
So the Americans have the glasses on of thinking this is the best system in the world. The Economist, looking from the outside at all the systems around the world, says that the broader point is that American healthcare needs to be simplified. Whatever its defects, Britain's single-payer national health service is much simpler, much cheaper, and relatively difficult to defraud. Doctors are paid to keep people well, not for every extra thing they do. So they don't make more money by recommending unnecessary tests and operations, let alone billing for non-existent ones. But the article points out that Americans will be reluctant to accept that because there's been a word applied to this system called socialism. So they'd rather be in a fraudulent system where they're having to pay $272 billion, 10% of all the cash. If it costs you $1,000 to go to the doctor, $100 of it's going to go to the fraudsters. You're happier with that than paying $200 for the same $1,000 system because there's no fraud in it.
Yeah, exactly. You see it here in the UK. They have the National Health Service it's a $110 billion piece of the economy, and the same people that are destroying the American healthcare service, the same accountants, the same lawyers, the same consultants are now in the UK destroying the NHS to turn it into this incredibly inefficient, bureaucratically driven, expensive service where the quality of care takes a huge nosedive.
And then so the other part of the virtual reality of the American system is that everybody is now piling into the stock markets. And all the propaganda, all of the media agrees, whether they're left, whether they're right, whether they're centrist, whether they're far left or far right. Everybody agrees that the stock market is the way to become wealthy. So don't believe brokers, the government, or Piketty. Your property values won't grow faster than your paycheck. So they're saying that every single person, including Piketty, is arguing that the reason why we have this wealth and income gap is mostly about the wealth gap, is that the rich have all these properties that that only go up in value. Everybody has this belief that houses never lose. And what he's saying is that everybody's now doing the same exact thing because of that, because of this global belief that everybody has the same belief that you could only win with that. And as soon as everything is a certainty that we all live in a virtual free range of free wealth, where it's only certain to create wealth, it exactly becomes the opposite. You're actually living in a tower of dripping down fecal matter, and you're in a caged pen of a battery-raised farm.
Oh, so this is the perverse effects of Thomas Piketty's book, which is entitled Capital. And in the book, he talks about how those who have accumulated financial assets tend to aggregate wealth at a faster clip than those who are not rentiers, in this case. So the response has been not to try to reform, but there's been a mad rush by the middle and lower classes into financial assets to try to become the rentiers that Thomas Piketty is warning about in his book, Capital. The tragedy, of course, being that they're rushing in at one of the historic tops in these markets, so they will get wiped out, as they do periodically. As we learned on Wall Street many years, the idea with the retail customer is sheer, don't slaughter. So many of these retail customers, they will have 80% of their wealth wiped away. You don't want to kill them outright because you want them to scramble back up the slippery pole over the next 5 years before you scalp them again. Sheer, don't slaughter. If you're getting into the financial securities business, remember that phrase, it'll serve you well.
Well, he's saying also that because of this perception of how the system works, is people are no longer coupon clippers. They don't worry about an income stream. They worry about, even with the markets themselves, they buy companies without paying any dividends. You used to buy stocks for the dividends. Now people buy it because they want to flip it later. The same with houses. He looks at markets around America, San Francisco, New York, and it makes no sense to buy in some of these markets. It's cheaper to rent, but people think that the house price will always rise, so they buy instead, even though it costs them more, because they plan on flipping it.
Well, for those who are fans of stock market slaughters, your day is coming. I find it quite exciting to watch all that carnage. All right, Stacy, we got to go. Bye.
Plucky's going to have a good time watching it.
Yeah, Plucky, he's been plucked so many times. Stay tuned for the second half. A whole lot more. Welcome back to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. Time now to turn to Alex Oates, writer and producer of a new play seeking crowdfunding. It's called Silk Road, the play. And also with us is the director of the play, Dominic. Welcome to the Keiser Report, gentlemen.
Hello. Thank you.
Alex Oates, first of all, why a play and not a musical?
That's a funny question because I love musicals. Dom's actually primarily a director of musicals.
All right, well, before we get into that question, let's go back for a second. For people, the Silk Road, of course, is the infamous black market, Bitcoin-enabled bazaar where people are buying drugs and taking out contracts for murders and things, and it was headed up by this mysterious dread pirate Roberts. Can you just fill in a few details there, kind of the potted version of that backstory?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously Silk Road's been online for a couple of years. It was allegedly headed up by Ross Ulbricht, who was a guy from San Francisco who was arrested, and the FBI shut the site down last November.
And the FBI now has a whole cache of Bitcoin. Do they still have that?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay. And there's Silk Road 2 apparently is up and running.
Which is back up, yeah, and that's what a lot of people don't really know, is that it's still going and it's still strong.
Okay, so this was a big part of the Bitcoin story last year, I would say, along with Mt. Gox, the exchange in Japan. It's really an enormous part of the Bitcoin story. So you have chosen to create a play. It's a one-man play?
It's a one-man play,
and you're taking it to Edinburgh, and it's going to be at the Assembly Room.
Yeah.
And you're crowdfunding this play.
Yeah.
So you are the director, Dominic Shaw. What attracted you to this project?
I just thought it'd be a really interesting backdrop for a play. There's never been a play about Silk Road for one, or exploring the Bitcoin phenomenon and all that kind of stuff, and to make it sort of human and actually make it a valid story where you've got a person who discovers the site, gets into the site, and then gets sort of sucked into the site, and then it all goes a bit wrong for him. Sort of quite an interesting idea for a play, never been done before really. So
okay, so I have in my notes here that it's Geordie is in the play.
Yeah.
What is a Geordie for the international audience, and why a Geordie?
Geordie is sort of a colloquial term for someone who is from the northeast. Like Alex, he's from the northeast. So he grew up in a place called Whitley Bay, and the play is set in Whitley Bay. So all the places in the play are real places, real bars, real nightclubs, real people. So it's got a real kind of genuine flavour to it.
Okay, now is Bitcoin, before this whole thing started, were you into Bitcoin? Were you trading Bitcoin? Were you mining Bitcoin? Were you part of the Bitcoin phenomenon going back how many years or not?
No. Silk Road was my route into Bitcoin once I found out about Silk Road.
Okay, when you say Silk Road was your route into Bitcoin, does that mean you were a customer of Silk Road?
No, that's just how I found out about it.
And so what, well, on a kind of, as a writer, what about this drew your attention as theatrical possibilities?
Well, I just think it's a fantastic innovation, and it's a massive development in the sort of history of technology to have this fantastic, the Satoshi algorithm, which has enabled people to do whatever they want on the dark web and using Silk Road. I mean, there's been so much in plays and theatre about drug dealers, but this is like drug dealers Mark II, the next generation.
They say that Bitcoin can disintermediate or put out of business things like Western Union or banks, brokers, the way contracts are written. Can Bitcoin do the same thing to theater?
I don't know. That'd be amazing. I think it would just need people to start accepting them.
Right.
Theatres, venues to start accepting them.
Okay, so you're crowdfunding. Speaking of funding, you're crowdfunding the project. You have a dual campaign, right, on 2 different platforms. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so we've got Start Joint, which I think you know something about, which is a really good one, and you also accept cryptocurrency, which is really exciting.
Right, so we take Bitcoin to help fund it, right?
Yeah, and Kickstarter as well, which we're launching.
Okay.
We need to raise about £10,000 between them, and we're going for 5 on each. But also we have a wallet that we're accepting donations into, and we got a really good donation last week of 2 Bitcoins.
Is the Edinburgh Festival platform, does it go, do projects that are successful there have a life after Edinburgh?
Yeah, they tend to. I mean, Edinburgh is so flooded with so much art, so much theatre, comedy, music, and you get sort of a handful of 5 or 6 plays that do stand up and win the Fringe First Awards, and they come down and they transfer to places like the Royal Court or anywhere really. But I mean, it's only a handful, so we're sort of trying everything we can to stand out amongst the crowd, so we can sort of get the attraction of the critics, which is really important.
Yeah, I was at the festival, I think it was last year or the year before, and there's 3,000 shows.
4,000 now.
4,000 shows. This is we're right from a person doing stand-up in a closet for 2 people, and then that's not a joke, for full-scale theatrical productions. So there's 4,000 projects, and when you go there, people are handing out flyers all day long. Now, it's a fantastic atmosphere. Anyone who's never been there, I recommend they go there because it's a fantastic event. You see so much talent. So it's really the seedbed for talent in Britain is really all the comedy, all the theater really kind of springs from this Edinburgh festival. And so let me ask you about the main character, Dread Pirate Roberts. Is he a hero or an anti-hero?
So the main character in the play is actually Bruce, and we sort of parallel that with the Dread Pirate Roberts story of Ross Ulbricht. But yeah, he's kind of an anti-hero in the way that, well, no, actually he's a hero because he's doing the best he can. He's trying to make his way in the world, but eventually he becomes unstuck. He gets embroiled in this web of Silk Road and things like that.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Charlie Schrammer story, who was a founder of BitInstant.
Right.
And one of the first and most vociferous Bitcoin evangelists. Mm-hmm. And he got caught at the airport and arrested, and allegedly he's involved with some money laundering. But he's a young guy, 22, 23 years old. Yeah. Got really caught up in the phantasmagorical ethos.
Well, that's it. There's so much libertarianism, and it's just, I think it's impossible to reconcile what you're doing when you're just in your bedroom at a laptop, and to understand the power of how illegal it is when you're doing something.
So you can, it's easy to get kind of sucked into it, because it is like a drug trip in that sense.
Yeah.
A lot of people, when the internet hit in the mid-90s, they equated it to LSD in the 60s because it gave this unbelievable amount of freedom. And then that became co-opted. You know, the internet very much is now HBO. Is pay to play. The internet is dead as we know it. You know, the net neutrality is dead. Then Bitcoin comes along, and it's again this LSD counterculture movement of freedom. But now it's meeting regulation, it's meeting resistance, it's meeting. Is Bitcoin going to be able to overcome and fulfill the promise? What do you think?
It's a really good question. I don't know. I mean, I think for it to gain a massive traction, it's going to need important people to invest their own money in it. And if the government and all the powerful bankers and stuff get involved, then the government will get behind it, and then it will do really well.
The actor who's playing the lead role, you're working with him now?
Yeah, a guy called James Baxter. He at the moment he's doing a lot of TV work. The last time he was at the Fringe was in a play called Scarborough by Fiona Evans, and that won a Fringe first, so he's sort of making a welcome return. He did that when he was, I think, 16, so he's coming back now, a bit older. Bruce, the character's 19, so it has a lovely innocence about it. And, you know, it's the duality between the innocence of this guy, Bruce, who's 19, in Whitley Bay, living with his nan, juxtapositions with the whole kind of Silk Road, dark web, sinister Ross Ulbricht story. So there's these two parallels that come together, and that's what interested me to the play.
The actor playing the lead was he new to Bitcoin?
Very much so, yeah. But what I've tasked him to do is sort of go on Silk Road and sort of explore it and
get arrested.
Well, no, not
well,
at
it's
all.
method acting, I think it's called. Well, there's a Kevin Spacey reference here somewhere. Kevin Spacey Foundation has funded you a bit.
Yeah, they've given us £1,000. Yeah,
He's at the Old Vic.
that's right. Yeah.
And so he wrote a check for £1,000, essentially.
Yeah, essentially, I started my playwright career there as part of the Old Vic New Voices. I did the 24-hour plays, and through that I met Kevin and the Kevin Spacey Foundation. So they've been really generous.
Mm-hmm. And wow, so how does it end, the story? I mean, I don't want to give away spoilers, but okay, so the setup is a young guy, he finds Silk Road, he's now like Alice in Wonderland, and he's on a magical mystery tour, and he can buy drugs and hookers, and it's a wonderful life, and he's getting Bitcoin and mining them, it's beautiful, and then what happens in Act 3?
Well, so he gets embroiled with the local gangsters who then want a piece of the Silk Road action and ask him to buy drugs for them. Takes on a bunch of money, and then the Silk Road Crash 1 happens, and he loses all of their money, and that's when it becomes really sticky for him.
All right, so again, you're crowdfunding the project.
Yeah.
Is this the future? Are the arts in the UK well funded?
No, well, it's very difficult to get funding from the Arts Council and things, and there've been massive cuts to the Arts Council.
Because in the US, the funding for arts is cut down to almost zero.
Yeah.
The National Endowment for the Arts is constantly being picked and picked and picked. I think it's actually now down to zero. So there is no respect for arts funding at all in the U.S. In the U.K., my impression is that it does get some funding. There is some respect.
It does, but it's not rationalised. It's not equal. You get some places that have really taken massive cuts, which is often you get some establishments that are still getting really generous sort of donations and generous support from the Arts Trust. So it's from the Arts Council, sorry. But it's not equal across the board. I don't think so. Something needs to be done to sort of rationalise it. But if we do that, my fear is it'll just go down even more. So I think it's about the venues and the buildings that have that funding just to keep producing more new material, so it kind of self-perpetuates and snowballs in that respect.
Here's a question for you, and we're kind of going on a tangent here.
Yeah.
But since I have you chaps in, Bob Hoskins recently died.
Very sad.
He was considered to be part of the last of a generation of working class actors. So in other words, actors in this country, at one time, it was a working class job. It was a job by geezers, guys who would come on the scene, you get a job, they're working class, but over the last 10 or 20 years, it's become so Hollywoodized, and it's all through the Oxbridge.
Your way into jobs, and it's like an old boys network, the internships and stuff.
So that you don't have that bloke working class element anymore. Is this destroyed to some degree the ability to cast shows because everyone's Keira Knightley and there's no Helen Mirren's from 30 years ago?
But way back, all those people got their job because they were good, and now because they were good and because of their talent, and now it's just harder for those people to break through because it's harder for those people to get the correct agents and it's harder for those people to get into those companies. But I think that it still happens. I mean, James, the actor who we're using for the play, he's from the Northeast. He's from a working class background, and he's done very well. He's done TV series and plays in London. So I think I don't.
Okay, another quick question.
Yeah.
How come so many British actors are on American TV shows now? Because they're cheaper?
I think, well, I'd like to say because they're better, I think.
The training's better over here.
Better training.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Well, we're out of time. So the show is called, what's the name of the show?
Silk Road.
Silk Road. It's going to be in Edinburgh. You're crowdfunding on Kickstarter and StartJoin for the Bitcoin component.
Yeah.
And you need to raise £10,000.
Yeah, just a bit over that, 10 or 12 grand, and then we'll be good. Our website's www.silkroadtheplay.com,
Yeah.
and we're on Twitter, Silk Road the Play.
All right, perfect. Well, thanks for being on the show.
Thank
Thanks
you,
a lot.
Max. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, and that's going to do it for this edition of the Keiser Report with me, Max Keiser, and Stacy Herbert. I'd like to thank our guests, Alex Oates and Dominic Shaw of Silk Road, the play, not the musical. If you'd like to get in touch, tweet us at Keiser Report. Until next time, bye, y'all.